my name is Jonathan Byerly. I am responsible for transformational sales enablement here at Dell as part of our Ready Solutions and Alliances organization. And I'm going to talk to you today about one of our really exciting offers, especially when it comes to starting customer conversations. I think you'll agree an entry price point for something as advanced as HANA, starting at $100,000 with hardware, software, and services, very compelling. But let's talk a little bit about the story we want to tell and the value that the product brings for your customers. So you can't even get out of bed anymore without hearing digital disruption, right? Digital disruption is changing the business landscape. How many times have we heard that? But it's true, right? What I like about this view here is when you look at the S&P 500, for example, as evidence of digital disruption, is there a better known indicator of the financial health than tracking the top 500 companies in the world? Well, 60 years ago, these top 500 companies, on average, were 60 years old. In other words, half of them had been around since the 1800s, right? Brick and mortar, big iron. These are the companies that drove the Industrial Revolution. But fast forward to today, just 60 years later, the average age of a company on the S&P 500 is 12 years. 12 years. In other words, half of the S&P 500s are millennials. And that's because of digital disruption, right? I mean, this is because these new companies have mastered data to create new business models and succeed to the point that they're among the top 500 companies in the world. Think about Uber, Facebook, right? I mean, obviously, their whole business is based on data and advanced analytical techniques. And that means that a huge number of companies have simply fallen by the wayside, right? If you don't embrace data, if you don't embrace digital disruption, you're going to crash. However, even the smallest company, if they do embrace digital transformation, can become a dominant player in the market. And really what digital transformation means is to become data-driven. You have to create a consolidated view of your company's data. You're talking about getting everything into one spot, combining data types of all kinds, and then programmatically using that data to drive your business. As you advance in the process, you need more and more immediate visibility to the data, right? It can't be last week's data. You're competing in real time, so you need to see your data up to date and in real time. And then once you're seeing that data in real time, you can start to chart the course of your company and base business models on the data that you're finding, making decisions in real time using the most advanced predictive analytics techniques to guide the course of your business. This is how you set advantage. When you talk about predictive analytics, there are a lot of different use cases. In marketing, for example, using predictive analytics to identify customers that may be moving to prefer a competitor, right, to reduce that churn. How can you engage them and keep them on board? One of the most expensive costs in marketing, one of the largest costs in marketing, is acquiring new customers. So keeping that investment, spending a little bit of money to keep that investment and avoid having to go acquire a new customer is a huge ROI. But obviously things like lead scoring or even customer targeting based on their traits, or the whole concept of marketing segmentation, right? How does a marketer divide their market up so that they can be very effective and targeted in their messaging and in their product development? Well, in the world of predictive analytics, suddenly your customer segment can be a single person because you can predict everything that they're going to do with a high degree of certainty based on a broad set of characteristics, so you don't have to artificially group customers into segments. In operations, identifying the potential failures on the production line before they happen to avoid downtime, or looking at all of your engineering logs and using advanced analytical techniques to identify patterns that lead to quality improvements or improvements in the customer experience, or in the fraud and risk space in banking and financial, identifying potentially fraudulent claims automatically to increase the number of of audits without increasing the amount of time invested, or in finance and HR, looking for employees that may be doing fraudulent activities inside the company, or perhaps planning to leave the company. Again, a great way to offset costs is to monitor these patterns, look at history, and find subtle insights that help you to guide your business. It really does make a difference. Dell runs on an annual basis what we call our Technology Adoption Index. We rate customers on a broad number of characteristics, and all to see to what degree they are putting data and technology to work. And what we found in the survey that we ran last year is that customers who are truly putting data to work are growing 75% faster than those who aren't. But of equal insight and concern is the fact that almost half of our customers don't actually know where to begin. They're still running the challenge with the basic blocking and tackling of data, thinking of data as something to store instead of thinking of data as a competitive weapon. And honestly, it's a long process, so it's no surprise that customers wouldn't know, or that it wouldn't be clear where customers where they should start. If you think about the progression of analytics and sophistication in analytics, one of the best frameworks, the most easily accessible frameworks, is Gartner's analytics maturity model. And there are four basic categories in this approach. There's what happened, or what they call descriptive analytics. Think of this as your basic reporting. Why did it happen, or diagnostical analytics. Think of this as slicing and dicing the data with a pivot table to gain a deeper insight. Then there's what will happen, predictive analytics, and what should happen, prescriptive analytics, actually taking that predictive model and making automatic decisions. But the process takes a long time. Typically, a customer starts out with a single business application, and that local application, the native reporting in that application, is absolutely sufficient to help the customer understand the business. But inevitably, as the customer automates more and more processes with business applications, the need for ad hoc reporting begins. And here's where the spreadsheets start to proliferate, because you have to manually connect the data between the multiple business applications. The next major step then is to start to convert this data into a data warehouse, creating a single structure for all the data to merge the data, extract it, transform it, and load it into a data warehouse, starting to define a consistent business logic so that rather than relying on just adding numbers from separate reports, you actually can combine the raw data from the applications into meaningful diagnostic analytic approaches. But the business always wants more than IT is ready to deliver. The spreadsheets continue to proliferate because forecasts must be made. Data still has to be combined in spreadsheets to perform the advanced techniques and apply more advanced analytics like predictive. This is where data marts start to become very valuable as you're pulling together specific types of data for specific purposes. And more you're formalizing this business logic and starting to add more advanced algorithms. Right? These are the statistical algorithms that have historically been the stuff of rocket science. Increasingly, though, what we find is the specialized skill sets are in very, very short supply, another barrier to moving forward. But ultimately, once you have your data and you're able, in a single place, and you're able to apply the advanced analytical techniques, then you start to understand the deeper trends, and you can build out and automate the responses, collect the data with IoT sensors, pull the data into your data warehouse, analyze it to create those predictive models, and then apply those predictive models in real time to make decisions and enable strategic advantage. But it's a really, really long process. We had this, we were stuck. Most customers are really stuck at that cusp of diagnostic analytics and predictive analytics, right? Just the basic blocking and tackling. We were stuck like this at Dell. We actually, I guess it's probably been about 3 years ago, we did an internal analysis, and we found that we had over 16,000 individual customer-supported systems, right? All of those spreadsheets that I was just referring to on the previous slide, 16,000 folks not in the business intelligence team, actually out in the business, unable to wait on the centralized systems to give them the insights, unsatisfied with the rigid nature of the information that was available, building and managing their own reporting systems, their own business management systems, instead of doing their day jobs, instead of marketing the product, selling the product, or actually running the business. They were moving data around. And worse, it's not like they were all focused on separate parts of the business. So there were redundant reports, and because they were built on the edge by folks interested in their data now, the analyses weren't always executed the same way. So you end up with this phenomenon of not only folks not doing their day jobs, but folks replicating each other's work, best case, or worst case, disagreeing. I've actually been in pipeline calls, for example, where sales reps are arguing about how to calculate pipeline coverage because two different sales reps pulled their own report instead of referring to a consistent report because that report wasn't available or didn't meet their needs. It's a huge problem, right? Ultimately, the innovation at the edge, where in the short term it can accelerate productivity and innovation, in the long term it creates analysis paralysis. This was Dell, right? Fortune 50 company. So what we did is we implemented HANA. We brought HANA in as a single platform, consolidated all of our reporting onto HANA for multiple departments, applying a consistent business logic used across the board. No more debates about how to calculate pipeline coverage or ROI or internal rate of return or any of those other regular business terms. They're calculated consistently, and the sales teams all have access to that centralized database. And of course, HANA's in memory, so the performance for the end users is blazing fast. In fact, as a result of what we did, 80% of those 16,000 unofficial business management systems are now gone. They're not needed because HANA replaced them. We're now able to respond to new requirements, new reporting needs at 50% faster. We doubled our BI team's productivity. We reduced non-standard KPIs by 50%. And again, 80% of those 16,000 unofficial reporting systems are gone. Think about it this way. If each of those unofficial reporting systems was taking an hour of a person's time each week, that's 8 million hours of time that was saved. It's a huge value. And by the way, we weren't actually even an SAP shop at the time. We implemented HANA as what SAP calls an agile data mart, purely for purposes of reporting consolidation and self-service analytics. So we were stuck at this phase moving from diagnostic analytics, stuck with the basic blocking and tackling, and really without the capability to address the predictive analytics that really create competitive advantage. This is where HANA shines because we consolidated all of our data onto HANA, and now with HANA's built-in predictive analytics capabilities, we can apply that advanced capability to our data to create new insights. Now, a lot of folks go back to the rocket scientist question, but the beauty of it is HANA and SAP's predictive analytics suite have automated most of those rocket science tasks. Now, for the companies that have rocket scientists, they can actually, HANA will automate the mundane tasks, but then allow them to go in and make their custom enhancements that is the stuff of PhDs. So what we've done then is bring SAP HANA to the masses. We are democratizing predictive analytics and advanced approaches to becoming data-driven for the masses. You don't have to be a Fortune 50 company anymore to get the benefit. You can get all of your reporting into a single source. You can use the built-in predictive analytics to refine the forecast, to predict outcomes, and lay the groundwork then for big data because you have your in-memory analytics engine. This is SAP HANA Edge Edition from Dell. Now, for comparison, okay, when you think about what it takes to do predictive analytics in the traditional model, it takes months. Even after you've figured out what application you want to use, you've got to figure out which hardware you're going to use. You have to order it, install it, configure it, load the software, and tweak the software, identify your data sources, connect them up, manipulate the data, pull in the data that you need from various sources. Then you actually get to the predictive analytics piece, which can still take months because you've got to figure out which variables actually matter, sample them, reduce them. Then you create your predictive model. You have to choose from hundreds of different approaches to statistics to determine the one that works best, and by ultimately scoring and validating each single one of them. Then finally, you're interpreting results before you can empower the business. This takes 5 or 6 months typically to complete, but the business can't wait. We have partnered at Dell with SAP to pre-integrate the solution on our industry servers, either in a smaller form factor, a 2-socket form factor, or the small and medium business customer with HANA Edge Edition, or in a 4-socket server with the enterprise license that for the larger customers. Pre-integrated, the system arrives data ready. Then SAP software has automated most of the rest of the task. Visual query building tools and data movement, data management tools allow easy access to the data, easy to show the data relationships that you want to use for analysis. And then you basically tell HANA what you want it to do in the predictive analytics suite, and it will go through and choose for you which automatically score every available analytical technique and recommend the one that will work best for you. It'll explain if the model even has blind spots. And once you select it, then it automatically tunes the model further to the entire data set, so that rather than waiting months, you're waiting weeks, maybe 3 weeks, because we also offer 2 weeks of Jumpstart business adoption services. We realize this is a new analytical tool set, so we're not just bringing in the server and sticking it in the rack and making sure that the lights are green. We're actually providing the detailed process based on the customer's goals. We're providing the assistance and demonstrating with hands-on examples how to use the data management tools, how to use the visual query builder tools, how to use the predictive analytics tools, and how to use the visualization tools. So rather than taking 5 months, it takes 3 weeks. Massive time reduction. This is time to value from Dell and SAP. The Edge platform, our Ready bundle for SAP HANA Edge Edition, actually includes our PowerEdge R700 series server. Very powerful form factor. It'll allow you to scale up to 1.5 terabytes of memory. We also include preloaded the SAP HANA Edge Edition software, which is licensed for up to 128 gigs of memory. And in addition, up to 512 gigabytes of dynamic tiering. Of course, I mentioned that the server itself can go up to 1.5 terabytes. And what this means then is that if you move beyond the limits of the Edge licensing model at 128 gigs, you can move straight into the enterprise licensing model with no disruption, up to 1.5 terabytes. A lot of folks question, 512 gigabytes of data, that doesn't sound like a lot. Well, it's not a lot in a traditional row store, but in an in-memory column store database, it's quite a bit. And let me explain to you why. The reason is that due to the performance limitations of traditional spinning disk databases, row store databases, a lot of the most common calculations are actually run in advance. So aggregate tables, indices tables, these are all accelerators to reduce the actual calculation requirements on the database and therefore increase the performance. But what that leads to is incredible redundancy of data. Up to 80% of data in a traditional row store database is indices and aggregates, sum tables, join tables. Because the data lives completely in memory in HANA, those are no longer necessary. So 512 gigs or 128 gigs of in-memory data in SAP HANA Edge Edition is the equivalent of 512 gigs of data in a row store database, but you add to that the dynamic tiering, an additional 512 gigs of column store data means that you're looking at the equivalent of something like 3 terabytes of traditional row store data. We also include the SAP Predictive Analytics Suite Edge Edition. This is the software that actually automates the advanced statistical calculations processes like I was talking about before. And we also include the Predictive Modeler, which is basically the license for the data scientist or advanced analyst in the BI team to create these predictive models using the Predictive Analytics Suite. Once those models are created, though, they're stored in HANA's Predictive Analytics library, and every user has access to them for their own analytical purposes. And finally, we include what is called Lumira. This is SAP's advanced interactive visualization software, beautiful ways to chart the data, to tell the stories that are needed to empower the business. And of course, our services come as well. We offer the price includes a certified implementation of the HANA database itself, the data migration, the training, and the full business adoption workshop over the course of about 2 weeks. And this starts for as little as $100,000 for 32 gigs of in-memory data. So here's some examples of the point-and-click data movement tools, the drag-and-drop visual query builder tools that make the data management and the analytics so simple. And then the beautiful visualizations from the Lumira software. Geographical heat maps, for example. If you have zip codes, Lumira will automatically build those awesome maps that show population densities or temperatures or whatever else it is that you want to represent. And then the platform itself. The PowerEdge R730 server holds the highest performance benchmark for HANA performance. It'll scale as you grow up to 1.5 terabytes of HANA in-memory HANA with an enterprise license, non-disruptive scaling, and of course, as mentioned before, it comes data ready with all of the software pre-integrated, the database implemented and ready to accept your data. So we've made rocket science simple. You don't need a rocket scientist to drive this digital transformation in your company. You don't need the slide rules and the PhDs that are capable of using the slide rules to apply the power of predictive analytics in your environment. You get a single source data mart, which dramatically simplifies the data management process. You get a consistent business logic so that all users doing their analytics are doing their analytics in the same way with the same basic calculation approaches and the same data connection approaches. The process of building reports becomes phenomenally easier. The data lives in memory. So as the business user is working with the database analyst, there isn't a 30-minute meeting to correct and then 3 days of waiting while the new process runs. The results happen in real time, just like a spreadsheet. And of course, the end-user performance is 1,000 times faster once these reports and analytical cubes are available. You get the advanced analytics without a data scientist, or the acceleration if you have a limited number of data scientists, dramatic improvement to their productivity with the advanced visualizations and built-in predictive capabilities. And finally, amazing time to value. This platform comes data ready, and we help you take it from data ready to generating results in as little as 2 weeks. So when you're ready to sell SAP HANA Edge Edition, obviously, as we said before, it's not just about Edge Edition. Edge Edition is a price point and a great conversation starter. We'd be perfectly happy to sell them the same exact solution on Enterprise Edition and generate a lot more revenue and close a lot more quota for y'all. We want to make sure that you know that there is a very robust dashboard with all kinds of content related to selling these kinds of BI solutions. It's our SAP HANA Analytics dashboard. What you'll see on that dashboard is that we provide not only your traditional customer presentations and spec sheets, but also call scripts. We provide use case specific customer elevator pitches. We provide account targeting guidance. We provide detailed selling motions. We provide a lot of detail. We provide a lot of detail on our own HANA story that is the basis for the offer and value proposition we're bringing to market in SAP HANA Edge Edition. Finally, you'll see links to 5 highly rated courses on our Sava Cloud. These are interactive training modules that actually explain the story from a customer perspective. In fact, you won't see a lot of reference to technology in here. These trainings are not about configuration and sizing. These configurations are about the pain points that your customer has, who in the accounts actually have these pain points, what they care about, and how to deliver this message to them.